The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. Welcome to Liberated Sisters. Today is our local outlook with our friend sister. Oh my God, she's phenomenal. Jasmyne Cannick has just arrived. She's a political consultant, among other things. We call her a champion right here in the LA community. Before we get to the Justice Report, I want to welcome Sister Jasmyne to take her rightful place here. We're recording live at Morris Media Studios. Let's welcome her, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Walaikum salam.
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Thank you. Yeah, we give black love here at Morris Media Studios. We're so glad you could be with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you comfy?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. A little bit.
You have time, so we're going to let Jasmyne get real super comfortable. We're going to have some virtual tea. You don't see it, but we have it here. And we're going to just talk sister to sister about what's happening here in the community. We will take your calls. It's going to be 323-293-3375 for Jasmyne or to talk about anything that we're going to discuss. But first, the Justice Report. In today's Justice Report, we're coming right out of the Final Call newspaper published by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It is the Nation of Islam's flagship media arm. Israeli snipers target protesters on Gaza. Day of rage. They've killed scores of people. And what I'm understanding right now is that the UN Security Council has an emergency meeting after Israeli forces killed 58 Palestinian protesters and injured thousands at the Gaza border, spurring worldwide protest. The U.S. yesterday blocked the UN from requesting an independent probe of the killings. Also in the Final Call newspaper, Jay-Z under siege. We understand that the business media mogul is really being called in to testify before the Security and Exchange Commission. This is amid other fights in the music and production industry. And the Final Call raises the question, should we be worried? You know, Jay-Z is a hip-hop artist and entrepreneur. He's drawn attention and perhaps the ear of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission for his refusal to cooperate in a probe launched by the agency into the financial reporting of licensing and brand management company Iconic's Brand Group. You can read more about that. That's Brian Crawford, our contributing writer at finalcall.com. And also, these stories are always touching. We have another dismemberment case. So 2 mothers, really 3 families, are wanting answers, and they're seeking justice out of the Oklahoma City area. There were 2 young men, Alize Smith and Jerron Moreland, that were shot to death and then dismembered in Oklahoma. two white brothers did this and then called their mother. She said, bring the boys to them, the young men, and she and her boyfriend helped the two to try to conceal the bodies. So they dismembered the bodies, they tied cinder blocks to them and dumped them in a pond on their private property. And the mothers say that you wouldn't even know that there was property back there. This is in deep Oklahoma, and so they're wanting justice for this. And also one of the mothers has said that the district attorney there, Gregory Mashburn, is not getting back to them. So that's something I'm seeing in some of the stories I've been covering a lot. Activists have said it. Police reform advocates have said it, that families who are victimized again when they seek justice by the authorities. Also locally, I covered this for the Final Call newspaper and also for the LA Sentinel. The mother of Hannah Bell and the family of the 15-year-old that was shot here on April 27th is seeking answers, and they want the people out here to know the truth about Hannah, that she wanted to be a model. She was not in a gang. She was not prostituting. She was not involved in all of these things that are being alleged by investigators, according to her mother. They met with us at the LA Sentinel, and the Final Call was privy to be there. And I also wrote about that for the Sentinel and LA Watch Times, as well as my good friend and journalist Neil Anderson. So these are just some things that are happening in the local and national scene with the Justice Report. And in a minute, we'll get to our local guests. But right now, I want to play a message from Minister Farrakhan regarding what's happening with this worldwide war that's looming.
Mr. Trump, you have to be careful. Because I did say on a sister station that if we voted for Trump, he's going to take America to hell on a rocket ship.
With him. Yeah.
And America, he thinks, is gaining by the bullying, by the threats. No, Mr. Trump, America is losing. And if America triggers the Third World War, which the Bible calls Armageddon, the America that we know, we shall never, ever know it again. We really need to stop and check, man, because you're getting the country into deep trouble.
It's Chicago Morning Take.
That's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with, again, another message to President Donald Trump over war that America is heading in. And so you can see that message on his Facebook page as well as NOI.org. Minister Farrakhan recently did a full interview where he talked about his new release of his 44-song box set, Let's Change the World. You can get that at lctw.com. And now return to our sister and friend Jasmyne Cannick. She is a strategist. She's worked at all levels of government developing custom-tailored communication strategies and messages for elected officials. I bear witness. I've seen the great work myself. And political campaigns and nonprofit organizations. She's also an accomplished producer and journalist whose work spans over a decade covering race, social justice, and political issues in print, online, radio, and television. Jasmyne, thank you for being with us.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam.
You look so beautiful. It's good to see you live and in person today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to take calls. Usually I say that we don't really get calls, and like Brother Tony.
I'm trying to tweet it out while we're talking so that folks can participate. Like, I know you shared it on your page, so I'm trying to share it on my page.
Yeah,
so,
I appreciate that. We don't want to take treasures like this for granted, but as Brother Tony Muhammad, Western Region Minister for the Nation of Islam, shared one day, he said people may be listening, and I do get that, but I also want to have an engaging dialogue for her because Jasmyne is doing a lot. There's so much credit for a lot of the things that our people in the local area have been able to benefit from. And the most recent thing is this tenant housing battle that took place. I was watching it in amazement. Yeah. Tell us about it.
So, that not just locally, but nationally, housing is an issue, right? We are not centered as people, as humans, if we don't have a home to call our own.
That's right.
And unfortunately, in Los Angeles, we are one of the highest rental markets, one of the highest real estate markets in the country, but our salaries don't necessarily match that.
Not at all.
So you're talking about a city now where the average rent is about $2,250. And, you know, that's like a one bedroom in a decent part of town. And maybe not so decent because we're having the issue of gentrification, right? So imagine if you are on a fixed income, like you're on SSI or you're on unemployment or, you know, you're still getting $221 on GR because GR has not changed. While inflation has changed and the cost of living has changed, GR has remained at $221.
How is that? What are people supposed to be dealing with that? Where's politicians?
Go talk to the county board of supervisors.
Okay, Supervisor Willie Thomas, we're coming your way. We want to know. And it's not just you. We know that there's a board, right? Not just the brother on the board, but you have clout. No doubt about that.
So, what happened was an acquaintance of mine was renting a room in a house on Crenshaw, and
around the corner somewhere.
Right around the corner, Crenshaw and Florence. I'm sure we all pass it here in Los Angeles. Those who are watching from LA all the time. And she let me know, like, look, you know, we're being evicted. And I asked, well, what's the situation? She's like, well, we've paid our rent to the person we rented from, but apparently she got evicted and she left and she didn't tell anyone. And so there is a house full of folks, and not just people like you and I who may be working and struggling and can't afford to pay rent. Someplace that was the case with my friend. Her situation was she actually had a job, but it didn't pay enough to pay a rent in an apartment somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You had a young man there who was autistic. You had seniors there. Yeah, it was a really bad situation. The house was falling apart. I can't explain to people how horrible this house is. I mean, you can go online to my website, JasmyneOnline.com, and you can see all the pictures. But the house had water leaking from the ceiling. You know, had 4 bathrooms, 1 working toilet, 1 barely working shower. It was just the most horrible conditions, except for being on the street. It was like almost like being on the street, but but you're within
some plywall somewhere.
Right. And so what I found out through the course of my investigation on this story was that this was a business for this woman. So she would sometimes get into cahoots with landlords, and sometimes she would dupe landlords. But the bottom line was she would rent properties in South LA, and then she would rent out beds and rooms. She would put as many as 8 people in one room and charge anywhere from $175 to $500 a bed. So she's still continuing to do this. This is not something that's past tense. Like, she is still in business doing this.
Some pseudo shelter.
Yeah, I call it a scam. You know, because it's one thing look, we want people to open their homes if they have extra space and rent rooms to people.
Yeah.
We're absolutely grateful for people who do that. But what we don't want is people to take advantage of the most vulnerable people in society. You can't, just because someone is renting a room doesn't mean that they don't deserve clean water, working water, heat, a clean environment. Yeah. No one's saying that they have to live in the lap of luxury, but these are the basics, right? When I was in Africa, when I was in West Africa working, we had the basics, right? The water may not have been hot, but it was clean,
it was
and
fresh.
It was cold, and it was certainly fresh.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Swaziland, the food too.
I slept in my mosquito net on my little narrow bed, took my cold showers, but I got the basics even in in West Africa, and here we are in what is supposed to be quote unquote the greatest country on earth, and you have people living in squalor like this. And these are people who are paying their money, right? So it's not a situation where people are living free. If you're getting $221 and you're paying her $200 of those dollars for a bed, I mean, come on now, right? So I started writing about it and chronicling the whole situation because to me that's a very interesting side of the homeless conversation, right? Because when we talk about homeless, we always want to talk about the unsheltered. Yeah. There are a lot of sheltered people who are considered homeless too. I was sheltered living, in one of my friends' houses, but I didn't have a house of my own. And I was, if it hadn't been for her, maybe I would have been on the street. I don't know. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who find themselves in different living situations just trying to get by. And we can't ignore that group of people.
No, ma'am.
And so luckily, I was able to work with Councilmember Marquise Harris Johnson and Solomon Rivera out of his office, and we were able to get the tenants relocation money, and they were also given time at a motel after they got the relocation money to find some place to go. And so, that story had a happy ending, but she still has houses all around South LA. I've been keeping in touch with people who live in some of them. And, me personally, I may not be writing about it every week anymore, but I'm still following the story. And we're still internally trying to pressure the city attorney's office to do something about it. Because if our mayor, Eric Garcetti, and our city attorney and our city council truly feel that homelessness is the issue facing residents of Los Angeles, then you cannot stand idly by and watch someone take advantage of folks who literally are putting people into homelessness. I mean, I've spoke with several landlords of this woman who, one landlord lost his property behind her. It was his first piece of property they had ever bought. Whoa. And he rented it to her. Her rent was supposed to cover the mortgage, and she stopped paying the rent. And she was doing the same sort of program. And I found this over and over and over again with several landlords who reached out to me or I reached out to them. And it's this pattern. And so what happens, if I'm renting a room someplace and the person stops paying the rent and I come home and there's a 3-day notice or a notice to vacate, and I've been giving my money to the person who I thought I was supposed to be giving my money to. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah. That's totally criminal.
You know what? I'm finding out more and more that it's not criminal.
It's not. How can it not be criminal?
I agree. It's a baby step. And you know what? I like to say in situations like this, when you find people who are operating in that gray area, when you find people who are taking advantage of the fact that there are no laws, that maybe we need to create a law around this. And this is a teachable moment for our city council and our county board of supervisors and our other electeds in this area, that maybe we need to close the loophole on this so folks aren't being taken advantage of, or else the city can expect to continue to pay out money like they paid out to these tenants, because it was a lot of money for me, it was a lot. And for them, it certainly was a lot of money. Yeah. And I'm grateful that they were able to get that money and they were able to, I think for them, that amount of money was at one time is exactly what they needed to try to get back on their feet.
Yeah, and change that situation. Thank you for that, Jasmine. I think it is criminal. I don't see how... At least the slumlord aspect of it, right? Can continue. You taking it and you're not keeping it up like that. But I think it's because this is South LA, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, you have a situation where most of the tenants were black. The woman who did this to them was black.
All skin folk ain't kin folk.
A lot of the landlords that she rented from that she took advantage of were black. And it was just really unfortunate. But like I said, it puts a different face and a different story to the homeless situation here.
That's right. And let's go back and I want to stay on that thread for a minute, because Jasmine's right. We have relatives, friends on couches bunking together,
floors, on floors, garages.
And don't consider it like that because we think structure.
Yeah.
But what is a home? What is the ability to buy and have property? I have a beautiful sister friend called me this morning getting ready to buy a house. But
good for her. The
basic is not even 4, and that's high for people.
If you want to be in Los Angeles, it absolutely is. I wonder more and more if I'm ever going to buy a house here. Because
someone's going to give you a house.
Hallelujah. All right.
Jasmine's getting a house, okay? Give it to her. She's worked for it.
But it is really hard.
Yeah.
That having, worked in politics and looking at it from all different angles, I'm always confused as to whether or not this city actually wants people like me here or not. Right? Because out of one side of their mouth, they say they do, but then all of their policies and the things that they put into place are the exact same policies that push people like me out of the city because we can no longer afford it.
Yeah, priced out.
Right. And then, and that's where you have the effect of gentrification because the people who can't afford it are the ones who come in. And we're seeing that more and more, particularly in South LA communities. I don't even recognize parts of Crenshaw Boulevard anymore.
We don't recognize the park. I have two students here with us today. We took them to, around the area. And just every time I see Leimert Park, fenced up, I'm sure they're going to be doing something with it, but it just all looks different.
Yeah. And, I grew up. My first introduction to Leimert Park was going to the assembly with my grandmother because she was Jehovah's Witness. And if you remember at the Vision Theater, they used to have their assemblies there. It would be there and then also Dodger Stadium. Wow. And so I just remember as a young girl going to Leimert Park and always seeing the Nation. Like that was back like in the 90s and the 80s. And I remember the Nation was very, very active and strong in Leimert Park. I didn't know much about Los Angeles because I didn't grow up in LA. I grew up in Hermosa Beach and like in the South Bay area. Yeah. But when I came here for that, I would always remember the pink boxes. As a little girl, I did. I would always remember that was my first introduction to the Nation, actually, and Leimert Park. Yeah.
Yeah, we had our Mosque 27 was over here under Brother Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad right here. It was actually the corner spot, the mall. Yeah. The city took the eminent domain that right away. But yeah, Leimert does look different. The Crenshaw district looks different. I hear the stories of people talking about, white women calling cops on brothers at bus stops, afraid. Go ahead, Jasmine.
I don't
wanting a dog parking.
I don't know what to say. I mean, part of me is, well, you moved over here, and now you want to call the police on us because you see us. You moved into
you're afraid.
Our neighborhoods, right? And if you were so afraid, then maybe you shouldn't have moved over here. I did a piece for NBC on Friday looking at all of the. I think they characterized the piece. 911 calls on suspicious people. Is it racial profiling? And I kind of chuckled when I was doing the piece because I was like, this isn't new to me and you, right? But again, to everyone else, I guess this is like, people are calling the police on black people? And like,
they know what they're doing. It's not racial profiling. It's attempted murder today.
That's not new. And this video of the barbecue and the charcoal and the woman crying, I was just like,
that was outlandish.
Got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
That just took the cake for me.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. But, again, back to that ownership piece. How much of that would have been able to stave this off? We don't really know.
No, we don't. But, we have to look at the situation realistically, right? So what we have, or what we had, let's go with what we had and what we have. So what we had was my grandparents' generation moving out west, right? We had my grandparents' generation leaving the South, coming out west to California, to make a better life for their children, right? And so they scrimped and saved. Yeah. Many of them were entrepreneurs. Many of them came here like my grandparents did, and they worked for McDonnell Douglas and some of these
aerospace.
Yes, exactly. And then like and went back out and then went on their own and opened their own business. Yeah. Okay, and they saved and they bought their houses, right? So when my grandmother told me the story about how when they first moved to Compton, white people were still there. Yeah. And they were part of that. Yeah, they were part of that crew of black folks that moved in and helped, I guess, usher out the white folks, right? And then bought a house in Gardena, and if I remember correctly, I think my grandmother said that they paid like $20,000. But for back then, that was a lot of money, right?
Wow.
And so then you have them passing on and passing down that property to my parents' generation, who either sold it, took out a loan on it and couldn't pay for it, and got it foreclosed on.
Yeah.
But whatever happened, it didn't get to my generation, right? And so I think that's where you see a lot of the breakdown.
Yeah.
Is that people would rather have the money than the property for whatever reason at the time, whatever's going on in their life, whatever their finances are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not looking at sort of the bigger picture and the bigger implications around losing that property.
Yeah.
You know, because I know when my grandmother's house was lost, I'm still trying to have a relationship with my father behind my grandmother's house being lost. I do not appreciate what he did, you know.
Right.
And as a daughter, I'm just trying really hard not to, you know, I was angry, but, you know, you can't go through life like that, you know.
That's true.
But this is the pattern that I see in our families. I see that our grandparents and our great-grandparents, like I said, worked really hard to try to set up this foundation. Yeah. And then their children are the ones who squandered it away.
It is said, what you don't work for, you don't appreciate, you know. Yeah. We do have to figure it out, though, because, you know, one thing that's happening is, I know in some areas that's being gentrified, like San Francisco, right?
Wow.
And Bayview Hunters Point. I remember just a few years ago, you know, I went for a rally there, and there were all these 2%, less than 2% signs. And what I didn't understand was they were being gentrified right out of that hillside area, but there's so much going on there, you know. And there's a lot of different things happening underneath that. But when you talk about sky high rents, now that place is crazy too. But we live here, and one young person was asking on the way here, like, well, where are Black people supposed to go?
You know, that's a question I struggle with. I'll give you a perfect example. Like, I am in the process of moving. Like, I didn't think I would be moving anytime soon again. Like, I moved 2 years ago when I had the awful job of, like, packing up my grandmother's house and cleaning it out for the new owners and stuff. Like I said, it's emotional, you know?
Yeah.
And I found a place that I wasn't too excited about, but I was happy to find it. Yeah. And it was somewhat in the community, so I was like, okay. But it was in a part of the community I had never lived in, and there's a lot of crime over there. It still is, right?
Right.
So I was just kind of nervous about all of that. And then my owner sells the duplex. Like, this is in the past couple of weeks, he sold it. And I'm just like, oh, man. So I started looking for another place. I found a place over here in Leimert Park, and I'm still looking. I don't, you know, I put in applications at a couple places, so we'll see where I land. Yeah. But one of the places I found in Leimert Park that I was so excited about, I was just like, I could not believe that was under $2,000.
Wow.
And then it dawned on me when I met with the people, it was a Black-owned place, and the owner had, like, some of his relatives living on the first floor. So I could see what he was doing, like, in terms of his own community. He was looking out for his elders, and then the other apartments that he had left, he was renting out, but not at the market rate. Still trying to keep us in the community. Yeah. And I appreciate that. Whether I get the place or not, I appreciate that, those efforts, right? Because what I try to talk to a lot of homeowners about is, like, I understand everybody wants their property value to go up, right? But you got to think about the bigger white picture. People are the only people I know who could move into a neighborhood and the rent in a property, the property value goes up.
Skyrocket.
Right. Black people, brown people move into the neighborhood, it goes into the opposite direction. There's something fatally wrong with that, right? There's definitely a flaw in the system. Yeah. And even the most so-called woke and conscious homeowners, you know, turn into NIMBYs when it comes into the value, of their property. And it's like, you can't on one side of your mouth talk about how you don't like gentrification and you would like the community to reflect, black and brown people that have lived here for decades, for generations. Yeah. And then at the same time, champion the same policies that bring white folks into your neighborhood that increase your property value. It's got to be one or the other. And we do a lot of that in Los Angeles. We do a lot of that in this country, talking out both sides of our mouths. Yeah. So you need to take a position, and you need to own that position and stand by it. And what I see here, especially with black homeowners, is I'm seeing more black homeowners more concerned with their property value than their brothers and sisters. Yeah,
seeing that. And she's speaking of not in my backyard, that sentiment. We don't want that in our backyard. Unity and love. If we really get back down to the root of it, I think it's just, that's the crux of it, love. Like, do we really want for brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves? Can we really rally, we protest, we fight? But we're sitting here hearing Jasmyne Cannick looking for a place. You know what I found? That word of mouth is something else.
It is.
It's something else. So you're hearing us as she continues. A very beautiful
2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, preferably with the washer and dryer hookups. Yeah. But I'll take 1 bathroom, but it's got to be 2 bedrooms because I have moved into elder care. I mean, in a different kind of way. I was always taking care of my grandmother, but she's like in a nursing home, right? Yeah. It's just like super personal. Yeah. But
she's opening up.
But now I am also taking care of my dad. My dad's sick, and I'm, remember, I was just telling you about the whole house thing. And so it's like full circle because now he's living with me. After losing my grandmother's house. So, but I am trying not to be that kind of person in my... Good. I'm looking after him. So now I totally have to have like a 2-bedroom. Luckily, I already had a 2-bedroom where I've been living at. But I can't have my dad living in the living room. He's an older man and he's sick, so he needs to kind of have his privacy. Yeah.
What about senior care homes? Because he's certainly qualified.
Yes and no, and it's safe. But I don't think he's not there yet. My dad is in his 60s.
Oh.
Yeah, but
he's just hitting.
Yeah, AARP. But he suffers from what a lot of black people suffer from, and what I'm trying not to suffer from, which is diabetes, and all of the illnesses that come with that, right? Kidney failure, if you black, you know what happens with diabetes, right? And more than half of my family, particularly the elders in my family, suffer from diabetes. When I think of my great-grandmother, I don't have a lot of memories of my great-grandmother because I was so young when she passed away. I may have been 7 or 8. I remember going to her funeral. That was the first funeral I had ever attended. Yeah. But I remember great-grandma had 1 leg. And I remember great-grandma loved her candy. She was always passing out stale candy. I remember that.
Why just got to be stale?
Because now that I'm older, I realize that candy was stale. But, now that I'm older, I'm like, why did great-grandma have 1? Oh, because great-grandma was a diabetic. My grandmother's a diabetic. Oh, my grandfather was a diabetic. Yeah. My other grandfather became a diabetic. My dad became a diabetic in his 50s or late 40s. So and my aunt was diabetic. Wow. She died from complications of diabetes about 3 years ago. Wow. Very young, early 60s. Wow. Wow. So I've seen the effects of diabetes in my own personal family. So, when my dad got sick late last year, I was like, okay, well, let me just see if I can help get him back on track and, all of that good stuff. This stuff we have to do in our families, right? People don't realize that we may be out here changing the world doing all of these things, but at the end of the day, we're still daughters and sisters aunts and granddaughters. And, I'm not a mother, but I know you're a mother, and happy belated Mother's Day. Oh, like, we still have all these things that we're doing in our personal lives. Yeah. Trying to maintain that balance.
Yeah. And they're very connected. And by the way, happy birthday to Raisa. My daughter turned 20. Also, my son, 15 recently. She's 20, Jasmine.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Isabu. And Jaleel Muhammad has a birthday coming up, my nephew. So happy birthday to you, too. I got to say, can I hear you talk about the diabetes track? And it's so real. And not mention How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know, it's simple read. It's not religious, but it is from God in person. The only book. It just teaches us how to eat. And so a lot of the things can be remedied, you know. The starches, you already know. Different things. But How to Eat to Live, you can get it at finalcall.com.
We got to do a show on that
Let's
at some
do it.
point, because I am one of the harshest critics of, like, food, right? But let me explain this. Like, again, it's like super personal, but you know, I could be personal with you. We all liberate sisters. But it's like, people look at me, you know what I hate? It's because, you know, remember I used to play tennis all the time, and I was like, clickety clackety clack, right? Okay. Then I got fibroids, and this was the outcome, and I'm still dealing with my fibroid issue. It's just something else we can do a show on.
Yeah, let's.
But I found with more freedom, because I study people, I study habits, not just in America, but I look around the country, and then around the world, and then in my travels and stuff. Yeah, it's like the more freedom we have, the more we take advantage. So we're free to have food delivered to our... I mean, you don't even have to leave your house to go to the grocery store anymore in America. No. You can order your... you can order your groceries.
Walking.
You can order McDonald's. You can order Fat Burger. Everything. Yeah. And if McDonald's doesn't have it or Ralph's doesn't have it, Amazon does.
Somebody
will bring it to your house. You don't even have to leave your house anymore if you don't want to. You can pretty much get everything in life that you want online, right? And so with that kind of lifestyle comes, we tend to, like, I don't want to say take advantage, but we have less self-control.
Yeah, we become lackadaisical.
And so what I've noticed, because particularly in our community where obesity is huge, and it's like, everywhere I look in certain communities, we get the same thing. We get Fat Burger, we get Chipotle, Wingstop, a Starbucks, and it's this, it's the same sort of, there's no difference in these shopping centers, these little strip malls that they put up in terms of what's available
model cities.
To us. Right. Yeah. And so, what do you think people are going to... Or where do you think people are going to go, and what are they going to do? Like in my case, I tell people all the time, yes, I do love food. My problem really isn't junk food and stuff. My problem is my fibroids. So, until I can deal with my fibroids, like, this will be my body. There's nothing I can do about it. And unfortunately, because I'm so young, doctors don't want to give me a hysterectomy. So I'm fighting the healthcare system around that, right?
Oh, you want one?
I am not having kids. And I don't want a whole hysterectomy. I want, like, the partial, because I don't want to, like, go really crazy. Like, I don't want to be so emotionally, like, because I've talked to a lot of women and a lot of friends about, that whole process. And I don't want to be thrown into early menopause and all of these other things. But I'm not going to have kids. If anything, I've committed myself, when the time is right, to be a foster parent. What I really want to do is help other young people who don't have anyone there, like, and
so there are plenty. This astonishment look is that I've never heard anyone say that, like, 'cause I'm always writing stories about this is why, and they're always, when you say that doctors are fighting you on that, I'm surprised.
Oh, no,
because they're just snatching wombs out of people all day.
No, I think they got the message, because I'm fighting.
It's amazing.
My doctor actually said,
wow, I never heard
I just want you to take birth control. And birth control doesn't really help the situation, and it probably made it worse, so I stopped doing it. But for me, I'm adamant about it because the doctor doesn't have to live my life. The doctor doesn't have to plan his month or his work schedule around not being able to leave the house because, you're having one of those episodes or whatever. And people who have fibroids, or people who have lived with people who have fibroids, know that that's no joke. I mean, it's really really devastating.
We need to do a show. We're going to do a show.
And yeah, it can stop your whole life. Like with me, it stopped my whole life for quite some time. I didn't play tennis. I didn't do anything. I didn't feel good. There are days like today where I just don't feel good, you know, and I know that's what it is.
Wow.
But what I am absolutely committed to doing, like I literally had to tell myself this. I had to tell myself this. You out here in the street fighting for everybody else and fighting for this and fight. Girl, you better fight with your doctors. Like, I had to, like, learn to, like, fight with them. Like, yeah, be my own, like, no, you're not going to, you know, you're not going to do this to me. Like, I don't want to, my life right now is nothing the way I want it to be. And it's 70% because of my health, because of these fibroids.
Wow.
So I got to get that.
Wellness.
Yeah. You know, and I've talked to Jan about this. Jan has been really great.
Robinson Flint. Hi, Jan.
Yes, she's been really great. And I love the work that they're doing over there. And, you know, again, I only found this out like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, because I had to go to the emergency room. I was literally sitting in a meeting that I had to get up and leave and drive myself to the hospital because I didn't know what was going on. And like 6 hours later, they're like, oh, you have these huge fibroids. And I know what fibroids were, so I was looking them up on the internet. And I posted something on my Facebook page about it, and I had like thousands of comments from other Black and brown women. And I was like, I did not know it was such a big deal for Black women. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So now I'm just, like I said, but our healthcare system, the way that it's set up in this country is that you really have to be your own advocate. You know, I read a horrible story over Mother's Day weekend, scrolling around, because that's when I get to really read, is when I take my other stuff that's not work related, about a woman fighting to get a liver, and her insurance company denied her the liver transplant, and all of the fighting that she had to go through for all these years, and she finally got approved. But it took, you know, it being in the newspaper, it took her writing to the president of the company, and all this stuff, right?
Waiting her out
and
to
die. I said to myself, yeah, that's basically what it was like. And I said to myself, that's the same thing we all end up having to do. It's like we're forced to get health care, which, look, at my age, I'm happy to have health care. I thank God every day that I can afford to have pay for health care, right?
Yeah, right.
But why do I have to fight about my health care? Like, why do we have to, you know, it's like you want us to have it, you mandated that we have to have it, and then it's like,
it's correct.
We can't even get the simplest things done. And
it's like a car claim. It's pay. Yeah,
it's
send people's children off to college, and when you need it, it's not there.
It's not right. And so, I have to do a lot of that fighting, Sister Charlene. It is tiring. But I'm hopeful that by the end of the year, this will be, I've kind of given myself that deadline that by the end of the year, you know, and even in my work life, like I have to time it, right? Because I'm in the middle of these campaigns and stuff, right? Yeah. So it's like, I don't want to be down for 6 weeks,
you know, big campaigns
from a hysterectomy. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, let's get everything in place. So as soon as, you know, the November election is over, you're headed to the hospital, Jasmine. So, and then hopefully you can recover in enough time to go to Ghana with Nana at the end of the year. Because that's my plan, is to go home with her.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Hey, Nana. Oh, you mean these great sisters of ours.
Yeah.
Attorney Nana Jumfrey. This is astonishing. I mean, you know, I had a sister on, Mariam Muhammad. She just wrote a book, Heal Thy Life. Well, it really is I Am Enough, but she has this program called Heal Thy Life. And she talks about young teen mothers or pregnant girls and how they're being coerced into abortions, or they're being coerced into having, you know, hysterectomies and different things. And so, again, here you have to fight for something with health care. But this is what Black Women for Wellness does, a lot of advocacy work in terms of legislation. I mean, look, we have a local mayor, not to go so far into reaching for the health care issue, but just in some of what we're talking about today, who's running clearly for president soon. I don't want to jump over the governorship, but hearing him and his wife at the State of Black Women Conference or Summit recently, I'm like, he's campaigning.
I didn't even know he recognized us. That was clearly a like I don't know.
Like he's running. So put some stuff on that table. But let's.
I'll try to be nice, girl.
It wasn't a setup. I'm sorry, Justin. let's talk about some more things on the local spectrum. This is the Liberated Sisters Local Outlook. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. She's Jasmyne Cannick. Jasmine, I saw Mayor Asia Brown at this State of the Women's Summit. I didn't see a lot of local people though. I did see Alicia. But Alicia's not here. Alicia's primarily in the South.
I think so.
Yeah. And I was like, where's our people? Not even Dr. Melina was there. So
I don't know. There's always that battle of the big stage versus little stage folks. I try to stay out of that. But it is something that I do notice too.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was sitting there.
And it's
and I did enjoy it, but I did notice it. Some local LA-based celebrities, but when you do a national summit like that and you go into the area, you would think that you would have some. And again, there were some there, but not in terms of the advocacy that was moving. I know Norbise and Black Women for Wellness, Norbise Flint, they did do something on the third day where they went out into each of the local areas. But just in terms of that live streaming, that national platform, I didn't feel it.
Yeah,
Anyway, so let's take our next few moments before we wrap up to talk about things that are near and dear to Jasmyne Cannick. I think I want to ask that. Like when we talk about local outlook, what is something that you think that you would like local LA to be focused on?
Well, I have a couple of things. Like, personally, a couple of things. So first, I'm happy that I'm at that point in my life, in my career, where I can kind of pick and choose the work that I do.
Isn't it beautiful? I got to say, here.
Yeah, but it was a lot of hard work, right?
Yeah,
because,
getting there.
I spent a lot of time cutting my teeth, working for folks and doing different things. But I've always had this, mandate to inside of myself was if you're going to work for someone, I got to believe in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I have to support them personally. It is very hard in the work that I do in terms of communications and stuff to get up before cameras and be like a Sarah,
Huckabee
Sanders. And if I don't, you have to really believe in the person that you're trying to defend or speak for, right?
Sell.
Right, exactly. Because if you don't, it truly does come through. Mm-hmm. So I understand the hot seat that she's in because I've been in that hot seat. I continue to be in that hot seat, so I completely get it. But for me, I choose to work with people who I think are really doing great things, who actually do have the best interest of the community at heart. Mm-hmm. And that's always been important to me.
Yeah.
So I continue to do that, right? So the campaigns and the different people that I work for are people that actually really do believe it. I think that are doing great things in our community. And then I just have my own personal issues. It's really funny to me, girl, sometimes is that when it comes to white women, just white people in period, you can be an actor and a waiter. You can be a producer and an Uber driver. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to Black people, it's here's the box and you got to fit in it.
You better stay in it.
And if you don't fit into this box, and we don't know what to do with you.
Isn't it horrible?
So that's how I end up being, community activist Jasmine and this. And I'm like, really? Because I don't really consider myself a community activist. I know other people do, but I don't consider myself one. Mm-hmm. But I always find it really interesting that the things that I do, I'm people don't acknowledge me for those things. When I say acknowledge, I mean even the stuff I do for CNN or local news and stuff, they're always trying to minimize me as less as possible. And it's
don't take it.
But you don't do that to. You don't even do that to Black men, but But when it comes to Black women, it's you can only do this. Yeah. No, I can be a journalist. I am. I can be a political consultant because I am.
That's right.
And I could be a political commentator because I do that too.
Hey, go
and
fly
I could do 10 other things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. This is 2018.
Yeah.
And if we can make allowances to call people, I know people who want to be referred to as them and they. I know people who were born male, who are now female, who we are supposed to refer to as her or she. You can definitely understand that this Black woman can do more than one thing. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, define yourself. She defines herself. We define ourselves. We're not what people call us. We're what we call ourselves. And you're right. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so I've been fighting that good fight this year too, because I'm really invested in making sure that people understand that as Black women, we're multidimensional and we do a lot of different things.
Yeah, we're not monolithic.
I can produce radio shows. I can produce television shows. I can write novels. I can write op-eds. I can run political campaigns. I can run for office.
Yeah. And when are you going to do that? I always wonder, so when is Jasmine going to run?
I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't know. I don't really think it's
You're not going to run for mayor?
No, I don't think I would ever run for mayor, not of Los Angeles.
You could do it.
I'm sure I could do it. I'm absolutely sure I could do it. Yeah. But
I campaign for you, Jasmine, and I don't campaign.
Right, I know.
I campaign for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and all the support that I do have from people, like, I try to harness that into the issues that are important to me. So homelessness is like number one for me.
Yeah, that's key.
Because it's something that affects us all. And it's not just, like I said, the unsheltered homeless. It's the people who are one paycheck away from homelessness. It's the people who are working 4 jobs just to pay the rent. Yeah. Like, we have to figure something out. I don't know if this issue around rent control is I think it extends more beyond that as well. Mm-hmm. You literally have people. Earlier you were talking about, I think, one of the young men or one of your students who asked, well, where are the Black people supposed to go? Right? It's a really great question.
Yes, it is.
Because I started to answer that, but then you know how it is.
I went all over the place.
But it's like, how much further east do you want to push us?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, I almost feel like they're trying to push us all to the east side. Mm-hmm. And no shade. I love my people, but I don't want to live around some of my people. I'm going to keep it real, because I don't like gang violence. Mm-hmm. I don't like being scared in my own home. I don't like being afraid when I get the car that I'm going to be mugged or robbed. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that happens in neighborhoods more than it happens in other neighborhoods. So I try to keep myself in a certain part of town where at least I feel a little bit more. I'm not saying I'm 100% safe.
Yeah, because we're in America.
But I feel at this point, they're trying to push us all like to a certain part of town. And people, but even on that side of town, let me tell you, go to Trulia, go to Zillow. They are charging for 2 bedrooms, like on Main and 65th, $2,500. Are you serious?
People are just going to
and people are so desperate for housing.
They're just going to revolt. Like, we're not doing it.
People are so desperate for housing that they, and this is why I tell people, you cannot, for example, as an elected official, I mean, okay, am I going to take money from the apartment owners association and then sit up here and talk about how I'm for the tenant? Like, you have to make up your mind.
People are being real today, though, because somebody will be like, well, what about this? Like, people meet you on the street, like, what about this? You said that.
Yeah. Well, thanks to social media and modern technology, you'll remember this. I was when I did that piece for NBC last week, I was explaining to the reporter. I said, well, now when things happen to Black people, we don't have to wait 1 week till the Black newspaper comes out to read about it.
That's right.
We still read the Black newspaper, but now the Black newspaper is online, and now you have all of these other online entities and this social media. So things where it used to take maybe a week for the word to get out, now it takes like an hour.
It's just like that. It's just like that.
It's instantaneous. So we know what happened in Oakland immediately, and we know what happened in Philadelphia immediately.
Yeah. This is how Trayvon Martin, the protests and different things spread. This is how the Oscar Grant movement, a lot of things are happening. We have to control our own communication. And even though sometimes people put stuff out that's just not true, but you still can see it and say, well, let me check on that.
Yeah.
But you're right. We don't have to wait. And the thing I love about it, being able to use this not so new media anymore, is also the fact that we can tell our own stories. Absolutely. And so again, we're weekly. Like, I write for a weekly. The Sentinel, all of the outlets I contribute to are weekly. The shows are weekly. This podcast is bi-monthly. But the bottom line is that we still can tell it. See, Jasmine can sit here and tell what she's saying about herself, but she also has her blog. So Jasmine was one of the first.
I don't get to write as much. I know. People don't,
out there. Very, very
like,
one of the first.
I don't
rejected
know,
media like that.
Over 10 years ago, yeah.
Long time.
I don't get to write as much as I'd like to anymore just because of like my work life and stuff. But I do try to write at least once or twice a month or whatever. But the stuff that I write about, I try to be really deliberate with. I tell people all the time, it's like I may not write every day, but when I do write something, it's, it's worth
I get
the read.
Feel. Let me tell you, when it's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I'm scrolling through, because that's what I do. I say, oh, they upset Jasmine. I could tell. I said, oh, they upset Nana. They're ticked her off, and she's going in, and I'll just read. I don't always say anything, but I do look and I do read. This has been a great dialogue. We have a few more minutes. I don't want to say we're rushing out, but see, no calls. I didn't hype the line a lot because I think it's still new for a lot of people. Liberated Sisters is here on Mars Media. We're also still on KPFK, and we're on Radio Justice. And again, coming soon to a station in Iowa. But we just need to be able to have it. And one thing I do know is that when I got on the ground here in LA, you were doing work. So I want to tell you, as I tell all the people like Nana and others, thank you so much for embracing just me with the work with the Final Call and the radio station, because, people think that being a female Muslim journalist is like some big, spooky thing. Nah.
You've done great work, Sister Charlene. I followed your career too. And, it's because of people like you that our stories are able to be told in a way that is thoughtful and respectful, And that's important. I tell people all the time there's a reason why the black media exists, right? There's a reason why Spanish language media exists, because there is a certain way that we talk to our communities, that we tell our stories, and it will always be different from the mainstream media.
Always.
But I think it's needed, because the other side of that is that there are stories that the mainstream media won't cover. Yeah. But we're going to make sure that we cover them in the black media. Yeah. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I watch you all the time.
Pray for me. Pray for me.
I will.
Yeah, no, these are not what they say is the worst of times, the best of times, the worst of times. These are not easy times, but when I'm able to just have a conversation with you right now, I'm just so relaxed, because we're under assault. 15-year-old Hannah Bell, to your point about the black media, when we sat in the Sentinel's conference room, it was Brandon, Niel, some of his other staff, the Sentinel staff, and Hannah Bell's mom was there, reminded me of when we sat with Oscar Grant's mother. But she just kept saying, Miss Samantha Mays kept saying, that I want people to know the truth about my daughter. The media is not telling the truth about my daughter. And she made a lot of allegations that were heart-wrenching, if they bear out to be true. But I do want to say this. I have no reason to believe that they're not, because in the last few cases I've covered that have dealt with black mothers seeking justice, the common thread was mistreatment by investigators, police on the scene, and no follow-up and no communication.
That case is very heart-wrenching. Yeah. That was also the same block that the young man was killed last October.
Weber? Is it Weber? I don't even say
Weber.
Names because there's so many and I get them wrong.
He was the young man that the young white man and the two black teenagers were accused of killing. Mm-hmm. The white boy that posted the $5 million bail that made
the rapper, the one that you've been writing about. Yeah.
So that happened on the same block. But my thing with situations like with what happened to Hannah Bell is that is extremely sad. Yeah. But I just go back to the community, because we know something, I personally, when you asked me what issues are important to me, and I told you homelessness was one, my second issue is black on black crime. Now, I have all the respect in the world for people who want to focus on police on black or whatever. I get it. Yeah. But what I see happening every single day in my community is black on black and brown on black and black on brown. And to me, that is more detrimental to my health and my well-being and my mental health and my community. And so when I think about Hannibal, I think about all of the other folks who have been victims of gun violence in our communities, and it goes back to community, because that killer goes back to some baby mama, some girlfriend, some mama's house, some grandmother. Someone knows something.
Yeah.
You know,
we have to thank you, Jasmine, for that. Yeah, she's right. We as Minister Farrakhan said once, we look insane, and police reform advocates and those who are pushing those buttons and staying on them to stop that killing, they're very well right. And then also those who are working like the gang interventionists.
You can do both.
And we have to fight this battle on two tracks. It's two fronts. We have a war on two fronts. Yeah, and so just big up to everybody. Much respect to anybody who's out there trying to stop this violence, because God is not happy. He's not pleased. And guess what? If we don't stop it, then we'll just be drinking our own blood. And then, as Vicki Lindsay says, which I miss Vicki.
I miss Vicki.
Gotta find Vicki. Get involved. It's happening from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hood. But get involved before it comes at your door, whether it's the police violence or the street violence. So, Jasmine, thank you so much for being with us, especially knowing that you didn't quite feel good today. But I was so glad and to have you here.
I feel a lot better now. So, hey, thank you.
Good. And I feel great, too. You know, I was kind of tired this morning, but it's like this is work. This is a ministry. You know, we're not just out here talking and bumping gums. And so thank you for tuning in. And I want to just let you know that the FCN story, finalcall.com on Jay-Z, check it out. Look, before we just wrap it up real quick, I want to say, why is Jay-Z being targeted right now? What is the activism? And, you know, I think Forbes has him as over $810 million. Okay, what is he doing with that money? Check out the article and see. And what's the Securities Exchange Commission wanting with Jay-Z and why he refused to go. Also, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you can follow the official Minister Louis Farrakhan pages there. Let's Change the World, lctwmusic.com, to order his 44-song box set. Look, it includes Shaka Khan. It features Stephanie Mills, Stevie Wonder, Snoop, the late, great Tina Marie, Damian Marley, many, many more people. It's very beautiful. Please pick it up. And then also Liberated Sisters on Radio Justice LA on Friday at 8 a.m. and KPFK the second and fourth Saturdays at 8 a.m. Thank you again, Jasmyne Cannick.
Thank you.
JasmyneCannick.com. Please
JasmyneOnline.com.
Oh, I'm sorry, JasmyneOnline.com. I'm stuck way back in the decades. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad saying thank you so much to Engineer LaRon today. We miss you, Poetess. Also to Sheena for holding it down here. And if it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. Peace.